The stars looked wrong today. Admiral Zethkara stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet die. The massive alien warships moved through space like floating cities of death. They were black as midnight and twice as large as his biggest. Ship. The enemy called themselves the Devourers, and they lived up to their name. Another explosion lit up the darkness. The Vraxian cruiser Lightning Strike broke apart in a shower of metal and fire. 300 souls lost in seconds. Zethkara felt each death like a knife in his chest. He had been fighting wars for 40 years, but nothing had prepared him for this. Admiral, the Korathi battle group is requesting permission to retreat, his communications officer reported. The young officer's voice shook with fear. Everyone on the bridge knew they were losing this fight. Granted, Zethkara said. There was no shame in running from an enemy you could not defeat. The Korathi were proud warriors, but even they understood when a battle was hopeless. The Devourers had appeared 3 days ago without warning. No one knew where they came from. They just arrived at the edge of the Kepler 442 system and began destroying everything in their path. The Galactic Council had sent every available ship to stop them. 17 different species had joined the fight. None of it mattered. The enemy weapons were unlike anything they had seen before. Their beams passed right through shields as if they were not there. Their ships could become solid or turn into ghosts whenever they wanted. When the Allied fleets fired at them, the shots went right through empty space. When the Devourers fired back, their weapons tore through armor like paper. Sir, the Luminari are signaling retreat as well, another officer called out. The Luminari were known for their advanced technology and peaceful ways. If they were giving up, the situation was truly hopeless. Zethkara looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed enemy ships. Blue dots showed his allies. There were 50 red dots and only 12 blue ones left. At the start of the battle, they had 120 ships. Now most of them were debris floating in space. Admiral, incoming transmission from the Devourer command ship, the communications officer said. Put it through, Zethkara ordered. Main screen filled with the image of a machine. It looked like a skull made of metal and wires. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding gears. Biological entities, you have fought well for inferior beings. Your resistance is noted, but pointless. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. This is Admiral Zethkara of the Vraxian Republic. We will never surrender to machines like you, he replied. The machine thing made a sound that might have been laughter. Your courage is admirable but foolish. We are the Devourers. We have consumed 1,000 worlds and their civilizations. You are just the next meal. The transmission ended. Zethkara stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he turned to his crew. All ships, prepare for final withdrawal. We'll fall back to the outer planets and warn the colonies. It was not the outcome he had hoped for, but at least some people would live. The Devourers seemed more interested in destroying military targets than chasing down civilian ships. Maybe the colonies would have time to evacuate. Sir, we're receiving a new contact on long-range sensors, the sensor officer reported. It's coming from the outer rim. One of ours? Zethkara asked. Unknown, sir. The signature is not in our database. It's much smaller than our ships. Maybe a courier or scout vessel. Zethkara felt a moment of hope. Maybe it was a ship carrying news of reinforcements. Maybe the outer colonies had managed to put together a rescue fleet. Open a channel. This is Captain Lisa Martinez of the Earth Defense Force destroyer USS Valiant. We received your distress signal. We're coming to help. The bridge fell silent. Earth was a small world on the outer edge of the galaxy. Humans were new to space travel and had only recently made contact with other species. They were not members of the Galactic Council. They had no reason to risk their lives for strangers. Captain Martinez, this is Admiral Zethkara. I appreciate your offer, but the situation is hopeless. We have lost most of our fleet to an enemy we cannot defeat. You should return to your home system and warn your people. Negative, Admiral. We're already on our way. ETA is 4 hours. Captain, you don't understand. The enemy has weapons that can phase through our shields. They have destroyed ships 10 times the size of yours. This is not a battle you can win. There was a pause before the human replied. Admiral, we didn't come here to win. We came here to help. Sometimes that's enough. The channel closed. Zethkara stared at the communication console. The human ship was still 4 hours away. By then, the battle would be over. The Devourers would have finished off the remaining Allied ships and moved on to attack the colonies. He looked at his tactical officer. How many ships do we have left? 11, sir. The Korathi have 3 fighters. The Luminari have 2 research vessels. And we have 6 cruisers. And the enemy? 51 confirmed contacts, sir. They've taken no losses. Zethkara nodded. The math was simple. 11 ships against 51. It was impossible odds, but they would make their stand here. Maybe they could buy the colonies. A few more hours to evacuate. All ships form up on my position. We'll make them pay for every meter of space. As his remaining fleet prepared for their final battle, Zethkara found himself thinking about the human captain. She had said they came to help, not to win. What kind of people flew into certain death just to help strangers? He was about to find out. The USS Valiant dropped out of hyperspace like a tiny silver fish swimming into an ocean of sharks. Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of her destroyer, watching the battle through the main viewer. The scene before her was worse than she had imagined. Massive alien warships drifted dead in space. Some were cut in half. Others were twisted into impossible shapes. The enemy ships moved between the wreckage like black ghosts, their hulls absorbing all light. They were hunting down the survivors. My God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Jake Thompson, the ship's tactical officer. Look at the size of those things. The Devourer ships were enormous. The smallest one was 3 times bigger than the Valiant. The largest was like a floating city, made of dark metal and strange angles. It hurt to look at them directly. The ships seemed to bend space around them. Captain, we're being scanned, reported Communications Officer Nicole Baker. Multiple contacts are trying to identify us. Let them, Martinez said. We're not hiding. Amy, take us toward the main battle group. Navigator Amy Collins checked her instruments. Captain, the enemy ships are moving to intercept us. They think we're just another target. Martine smiled grimly. Good. Let them think that. Paul, how are our engines? Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez spoke from the engine room through the intercom. Running at full power, Captain. All systems are green. The new fusion drives are working perfectly. The Valiant was the first ship of its class, Earth's newest and most advanced destroyer. It carried experimental weapons and systems that had never been tested in real combat. The ship was fast, tough, and packed with surprises. But it was still just one small ship against an entire enemy fleet. Captain, incoming transmission from the Vraxian flagship, Baker reported. Put it through. Admiral Zethkara's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and defeated. Captain Martinez, you need to turn around right now. The enemy weapons can phase through our shields. They can become solid or turn into ghosts at will. We've lost everything. Admiral, we've been analyzing your tactical data during our approach. We think we might have a solution. Impossible. We've tried everything. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, plasma charges, quantum torpedoes. Nothing works. Thompson stepped forward. Sir, our AI has been studying the enemy attack patterns. We think their phase-shifting technology operates on specific quantum frequencies. If we can disrupt those frequencies, we might be able to force them into normal space. Admiral Zethkara looked confused. Quantum frequencies? I don't understand. Think of it like a radio, sir, Martinez explained. The enemy ships change channels to avoid our weapons. But if we can jam their frequency, they'll be stuck on one channel. And how do you plan to do that? With these, Martinez said, nodding to Thompson. The tactical officer brought up a display showing the Valiant's weapon systems. Gravity pulse. Torpedoes. They were designed for asteroid mining, but we think they can disrupt quantum fields. Admiral Zethkara stared at the screen. You want to mine the enemy to death? In a way, yes, sir. The Vraxian admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. It was not a happy sound. Captain, you're either very brave or very crazy. Maybe both. We'll find out soon enough, Martinez said. All ships, fall back to a safe distance. We're going in. Captain, wait, Admiral Zethkara called out. If your plan works, what do you need from us? Just watch and learn, sir. If we're right, you'll know what to do. The Valiant accelerated toward the enemy formation. The Devourer ships reacted immediately. 3 of them changed course to intercept the human destroyer. There, weapons began charging, filling space with an eerie red glow. Here they come, Thompson reported. 3 enemy ships, closing fast. Let them get close, Martinez ordered. We need to be sure about those quantum frequencies. The first enemy ship fired. A beam of red energy lanced out toward the Valiant. The ship's shields flared as the beam passed right through them and struck the hull. Emergency lights flickered on the bridge. Hull breach on Deck 7, Rodriguez reported. Damage control teams are responding. Did we get it? Martinez asked. Thompson was working frantically at his console. Got it. The beam phased through. Our shields at frequency 847.3 terahertz. I'm programming the torpedoes now. The second enemy ship fired. This time Martinez was ready. Evasive maneuvers. Don't let them get a clean shot. Collins threw the ship into a series of sharp turns. The Valiant twisted and rolled through space like a dancer, avoiding the enemy beams by inches. The human ship was much smaller and faster than anything the Devourers had fought before. Torpedoes ready, Thompson announced. Fire, the first gravity pulse. Torpedoes streaked toward the nearest Devourer ship. The enemy vessel began to phase, trying to let the weapon pass through harmlessly. But something went wrong. The torpedo exploded in a burst of twisted space-time, and suddenly the enemy ship was solid again. It worked. Thompson shouted. The gravity pulse disrupted their phase field. All weapons, target that ship, Martinez ordered. The Valiants. Energy cannons opened fire. The beams struck the Devourer ship's hull and tore through it like paper. For the first time in the battle, one of the seemingly invincible enemy ships was damaged. The other Devourer ships seemed confused. They had never encountered a weapon that could force them to stay solid. They began firing wildly, but the Valiant was too fast and too small to hit easily. Captain, we're getting signals from the Allied fleet, Baker reported. They want to know how we did that. Send them our frequency data, Martinez ordered. Full tactical package. Let them know how to modify their weapons. Captain, are you sure? This is our only advantage. Martinez turned to face her communications officer. Nicole, those people have been fighting and dying while we were safe at home. The least we can do is share what we know. Within minutes, the Allied ships were receiving the human tactical data. The Vraxian cruisers began modifying their weapons. The Korathi fighters started adjusting their targeting systems. The Luminari, Research vessels shared the information with the entire fleet. "Captain, the enemy is adapting," Thompson warned. "They're changing their phase frequencies." "Then we adapt too," Martinez said. "Paul, can you give me more power to the sensors?" "All ready." "On it, Captain. We'll track every frequency they use." The battle was far from over, but something had changed. For the first time since the fighting started, the Allied forces had hurt the enemy. The Devourers were no longer invincible. Admiral Zethkara's voice came over the communications channel. "Captain Martinez, I don't know who you humans are, but we're glad you're here." "We're just getting started, Admiral," Martinez replied. "Let's show these machines what happens when you mess with the good guys." The battle changed in minutes. What had been a one-sided massacre became a real fight. The Allied ships, now armed with the human frequency data, began landing hits on the Devourer fleet. Explosions bloomed in the darkness as enemy ships took damage for the first time. Captain Martinez watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Vraxian heavy cruisers were using their massive guns to punch holes in Devourer hulls. The Korathi fighters swarmed around the enemy ships like angry wasps, their small weapons now deadly accurate. Even the peaceful Luminari had joined the fight, their research vessels firing modified mining lasers. "Captain, we're getting reports from all Allied ships," Communications Officer Baker announced. "They're requesting permission to coordinate attacks with us." "Granted," Martinez said. "We're all in this together now." Lieutenant Commander Thompson was tracking the enemy movements. "Captain, the Devourers are trying to reorganize. They're pulling back to form a defensive line around their command ship." The command ship was a monster. It was twice the size of any other vessel in the battle, a dark pyramid floating in space. Strange lights pulsed along its hull, and the space around it seemed to bend and twist. "That's their brain," Martinez realized. "Take out the command ship, and the others will lose coordination." "Captain, Admiral Zethkara is requesting a private channel," Baker reported. "Put him through." The Vraxian Admiral's face appeared on a small screen. His expression was grim but determined. "Captain, we've analyzed the enemy formation. The command ship is heavily protected. We'd need to break through 50 ships to reach it." "Then that's what we'll do," Martinez said simply. "Captain, you don't understand. Even with your new weapons, we're still outnumbered 5-1. A direct assault would be suicide. Admiral, sometimes the best strategy is the one nobody expects. We're going to punch right through their line." Admiral Zethkara stared at her. "You're serious. Dead serious." "My ship is fast and small. We can slip between their formations while you keep them busy." "And then what?" "Even if you reach the command ship, how do you plan to destroy something that size?" Martinez looked at her engineering display. Chief Engineer Rodriguez had been working on something special. "We have a plan for that too." The Allied fleet began, moving into attack formation. The Vraxian cruisers formed the center, their heavy armor and weapons making them perfect for holding the enemy's attention. The Korathi fighters spread out on the flanks, ready to dart in and strike at weak points. The Luminari ships hung back, providing sensor data and communication support. "All ships, this is Captain Martinez," she announced on the fleet channel. "We're going to hit them hard and fast. When they focus on the main attack, the Valiant will break through their line. Once we're past, keep them busy until we reach the command ship." "Captain Martinez," Admiral Zethkara's voice came through the speaker. "If this doesn't work, it's been an honor fighting beside you." "It's going to work, Admiral. We're humans." "We don't know how to quit." The attack began with a thunderous barrage. The Vraxian cruisers opened fire with everything they had. Beams of energy and streams of projectiles filled the space between the two fleets. The Devourers responded in kind, their twisted weapons lashing out at the Allied ships, Navigator Collins was already plotting their course. "Captain, I've found a gap in their formation. It's narrow, but we can make it if we time it right." "Do it." The Valiant broke away from the main fleet and accelerated toward the enemy line. The ship's fusion engines pushed it to maximum speed, the hull groaning under the stress. They were flying straight into the heart of the enemy formation. "Enemy ships are targeting us," Thompson reported. "Multiple contacts, all firing." "Evasive." "Maneuvers," Martinez ordered. Collins threw the ship into a wild series of turns and rolls. Enemy fire filled the space around them, but the Valiant was too fast and too unpredictable to hit. The ship dove between two massive Devourer vessels, so close that their hulls scraped against each other. "We're through," Collins announced, but they weren't safe yet. The enemy ships were turning to follow them, abandoning their positions to chase the human destroyer. The Valiant's surprise attack had worked too well. Now every enemy ship was focused on stopping them. "Captain, we've got company," Thompson warned. 20 enemy ships in pursuit. "Let them come," Martinez said. "Paul, how are our engines?" "Running hot, Captain," Rodriguez replied from the engineering deck. "But we can maintain this speed for another 10 minutes. That's all we need. Amy, plot a course for the command ship. Don't worry about being subtle." The Valiant raced through the enemy formation, leaving chaos in its wake. The Devourer ships were colliding with each other as they tried to intercept the human vessel. Their perfect coordination was breaking down. "Captain, the Allied fleet is pressing their attack," Baker reported. "Admiral Zethkara says they're taking advantage of the confusion." "Good. Tell him to keep hitting them. Don't let them reorganize." The command ship was growing larger on the viewer. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The hull was covered in strange symbols that seemed to move and shift. Weapon ports opened like eyes, tracking the approaching destroyer. "Captain, we're being scanned," Thompson announced. "The command ship is trying to analyze our weapons." "Too late for that," Martinez said. "Paul, are you ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be, Captain." "The quantum computer is charged and standing by." Rodriguez had come up with a desperate plan. The Valiant's quantum computer was designed to process massive amounts of data. If they could overload it at just the right moment, it would create a cascade failure that would disrupt every quantum field in the area. The command ship's phase-shifting technology would be completely disabled, but the overload would destroy the Valiant's computer, and probably the ship itself. "Captain, we're in range," Thompson reported. "All hands, brace for impact," Martinez announced. "This is going to be rough." The command ship opened fire. Beams of twisted energy lanced out toward the Valiant. The ship's shields flared and failed. Emergency lights flickered on the bridge. "Hull breaches on multiple decks," Rodriguez reported. "We're losing atmosphere." "Hold together just a little longer," Martinez whispered. The Valiant slammed into the command ship's hull at full speed. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. The human destroyer's nose crumpled like paper, but the ship kept moving, boring deep into the enemy vessel. "Now, Paul!" Martinez shouted. Rodriguez triggered the quantum cascade. The Valiant's computer overloaded in a burst of pure energy. The explosion tore through both ships, but it also created a wave of quantum disruption that spread across the entire battle zone. Every Devourer ship suddenly became solid. Their phase-shifting technology failed completely. For the first time in the battle, the enemy was vulnerable. "All ships, this is Admiral Zethkara," came the voice over the radio. "The enemy ships are solid. All weapons fire at will." The Allied fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and projectiles struck the Devourer ships, tearing through hulls that could no longer phase away from the attacks. One by one, the enemy vessels began to explode. On the bridge of the dying Valiant, Captain Martinez smiled. They had done it. They had turned the tide of the battle. The galaxy was safe. "Captain," Baker said weakly, "we're getting calls from the fleet. They want to know if we need help." Martinez looked around the ruined bridge. Half her crew was wounded, and the ship was breaking apart, but they had accomplished their mission. "Tell them we're fine," she said. "Tell them to finish the job." The USS Valiant was dying. Captain Martinez could feel it in the way the deck plates vibrated under her feet. The ship's hull was cracked in dozens of places, and atmosphere was leaking out into space. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the bridge. "Damage report," she called out, though she could already see the answer on her screens. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom, strained but determined. "Captain, we've got hull breaches on 12 decks. The fusion reactors are running at 200% power, and I can't shut them down. The quantum computer is completely fried. How long do we have?" "Maybe 20 minutes before the reactors go critical." "Maybe less," Martinez nodded. She had expected this. The quantum cascade that disabled the Devourer ships had torn the Valiant apart from the inside. But they had bought the Allied fleet the time they needed. "Captain, look at this," Lieutenant Commander Thompson said, pointing to his tactical display. "The enemy ships are confused. They're not coordinating their attacks anymore." He was right. The Devourer fleet was in chaos. Without their command ship to give them orders, the individual vessels were fighting independently. Some were trying to retreat. Others were attacking randomly. A few seemed to be just drifting in space. The quantum cascade must have damaged their communication network, Martinez realized. They can't talk to each other anymore. Communications Officer Baker looked up from her console. "Captain, Admiral Zethkara wants to speak with you." "Put him through." Evraxian Admiral's face peered on the main screen. He looked amazed and grateful. "Captain Martinez, what you've done here will be remembered for 1,000 years. The enemy fleet is breaking apart. We can finish them off now. That's good to hear, Admiral. But we need to talk about something else. The Valiant is critically damaged. We need to evacuate the crew. Of course. I'm sending rescue ships immediately." "No," Martinez said firmly. "Don't send ships to us. We're too close to the enemy formation. It's too dangerous." "Captain, I won't leave you to die." "You're not leaving us, Admiral. We're making a choice. The Valiant still has weapons, and we can still fight. We're going to stay here and make sure none of those Devourer ships escape." Admiral Zethkara was quiet for a moment. "Captain, you've already done enough. You've saved us all." "The job isn't finished yet," Martinez replied. "As long as those ships are out there, they're a threat to every world in the galaxy. We're going to end this." She closed the channel and turned to her crew. The bridge was half empty now. Several officers had been injured in the quantum cascade, and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Rachel Stone was treating them in the medical bay. But the core crew was still at their posts. "Listen up, everyone," Martinez said. "The ship is dying, and we probably are too. If anyone wants to leave, now's the time. The escape pods are still working." Navigator Amy Collins looked up from her console. "Captain, where would we go?" "This is our ship. These are our people. We're staying." "I'm with Collins," Thompson added. "We started this fight together. We'll finish it together." "The engines are mine," Rodriguez said over the intercom. "I'm not leaving them now." Baker nodded. "The communications array is still working. Somebody needs to coordinate with the fleet." Martinez felt a surge of pride. These people were the best crew in the galaxy. They could have been safe on Earth, but instead they were here, ready to die for people they had never met. "All right then," she said. "Let's get to work. Amy, plot a course for the largest group of enemy ships. Jake, Prepare all remaining weapons. Nicole, send our tactical data to the fleet. Make sure they know how to fight these things. The Valiant began moving again, its damaged engines pushing the ship toward the enemy formation. The hull groaned and creaked, but it held together. The ship was tough, built by humans who understood that sometimes you needed to keep fighting, even when everything was falling apart. "Captain, the Devourer ships are trying to regroup," Thompson reported. 15 of them are forming up around one of the larger vessels. That must be a secondary command ship, Martinez realized. If they get their coordination back, they could still win this battle. Not if we stop them first, Collins said. She was already plotting an intercept course. The Valiant accelerated toward the enemy formation. The ship's weapons were still working, though half the targeting systems were offline. Thompson was firing manually, using his experience and instincts to aim the guns. "First target in range," he announced. "Fire everything we have." The Valiant's remaining weapons opened up. Energy beams and projectiles struck the Devourer ships. Hull, the enemy vessel, still unable to phase shift, took massive damage. It began to break apart, its dark hull splitting open like a rotten fruit. "Target destroyed," Thompson reported, moving to the next one. But the other Devourer ships were fighting back. Their weapons, while no longer able to phase through shields, were still incredibly powerful. Energy beams struck the Valiant's hull, tearing through the already damaged armor. "We're taking heavy damage," Rodriguez warned. "The port engine is offline. Starboard engine is running on fumes." "Keep us moving," Martinez ordered. "We just need to last a little longer." The Valiant continued its attack, fighting like a wounded animal. The ship was falling apart around them, but the crew kept working. Collins kept them on course, even as the navigation systems failed. Thompson kept firing, even as the weapon systems overloaded. Baker kept coordinating with the fleet, even as the communications array sparked and smoked. "Captain, look at the tactical display," Thompson said. Martinez looked at the main screen. The Allied fleet was winning. The Vraxian cruisers were systematically destroying the confused Devourer ships. The Karathi fighters were hunting down the vessels that tried to escape. The Luminari were providing sensor data that helped the other. "Ships target the enemy. We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." "Captain, we're getting a message from the fleet," Baker reported. "They're asking for our status." Martinez thought about it. The Valiant was dying, but the battle was won. The galaxy was safe. Her crew had done something amazing. "Tell them we're fine," she said. "Tell them the mission is complete." "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," Baker said. "It's Fleet Command. Put it through." The face of Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on the screen. She looked worried. "Captain Martinez, we received your emergency beacon. What's your status?" "Admiral, we encountered a hostile fleet attacking the Galactic Council forces. We engaged and provided assistance. The enemy has been defeated. What about your ship?" Martinez looked around the ruined bridge. Her crew was still at their posts, still doing their jobs, even as the ship died around them. "The Valiant is heavily damaged, but we're still fighting. We've completed our mission." "Martinez, you were supposed to be on a routine patrol. You had no orders to engage in combat." "No, Admiral, but we had orders to protect human interests and assist our allies." "That's what we did." Admiral Hayes was quiet for a moment. "Captain, you've just changed everything. The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way again." "That's good," Martinez said. "Maybe now they'll know what we're really made of." The transmission ended. Martinez turned back to her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for orders. "All right, people," she said. "Let's go home." 6 months later, the galaxy had changed. Admiral Zeeth Kara stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, looking up at a new addition to the ancient chamber. A holographic display showed the final moments of the Battle of Kepler 442. The image of the USS Valiant, burning and broken, ramming itself into the Devourer command ship, played over and over. "Today, we honor the crew of the human vessel USS Valiant," he announced to the gathered representatives of 17 different species. 200 souls who gave their lives to save civilizations they had never met. The hall was completely silent. Even the proud Korathi warriors bowed their heads in respect. The peaceful luminari had tears in their eyes. Every species present had lost ships in the battle, but none had sacrificed as much as the humans. "Captain Lisa Martinez," Zethkara continued, reading from a list. "Lieutenant Commander Jake Thompson. Navigator Amy Collins. Chief Engineer Paul Rodriguez. Communications Officer Nicole Baker. Dr. Rachel Stone, and 194 other brave souls who showed us what it means to be heroes." The memorial service was being broadcast across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, people were watching and learning about the small ship that had changed everything. The human approach to warfare, creative, adaptive, and willing to sacrifice everything for others, had become the subject of study in every military academy. But the real change was deeper than military tactics. The humans had done something that no other species had ever attempted. They had shared their most advanced technology freely, asking for nothing in return. They had fought not for conquest or territory, but simply because it was the right thing to do. "The wreckage of the Valiant has been recovered," Zethkara announced. "By unanimous vote of the Council, it will be placed in a memorial orbit around the Kepler 442 system. Every ship passing through the system will see it and remember a sacrifice made there." In the audience, Ambassador Karen White represented Earth at the ceremony. She was one of the first humans to address the Galactic Council, and she carried a message from her government. "Admiral Zethkara, members of the Council," she began when called to speak, "I bring greetings from Earth and from the families of the Valiant crew. They want you to know that their loved ones did not die in vain. They died doing what humans do best, protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The ambassador paused, looking around the great hall. "But they also want you to know that this is just the beginning. Earth is sending more ships to join the Allied Defense Force. We're sharing our technology with anyone who wants it. We're here to help, not to conquer." After the ceremony, Zethkara met privately with the human ambassador. They stood in his office, looking out at the stars through a massive window. "Your people have surprised us," he admitted. "We thought humans were just another new species trying to find their place in the galaxy. We were wrong." "What do you mean?" Ambassador White asked. "Most species, when they first reach the stars, they focus on building colonies and gathering resources. They think about expansion and power. But humans are different. You think about protecting others." "That's just who we are," White replied. "We've always been protectors. It's in our nature." "Yes, I'm beginning to understand that. The Valiant crew could have retreated. They could have returned to Earth and left us to our fate. Instead, they chose to fight and die for strangers." The Admiral walked to his desk and picked up a datapad. "I've been reading the reports from the battle. Your captain made decisions that went against every rule of military engagement. She shared classified technology with potential enemies. She risked her ship for no strategic gain. By all military logic, she was a terrible commander. And yet she won," Ambassador White pointed out. "Exactly. She won because she thought like a human, not like a military computer. She improvised. She adapted. She trusted her crew to do the impossible, and they did it." Zethkara set down the datapad and looked at the human ambassador. "We want to learn from you. Not just your technology, but your way of thinking. Will you help us?" "Of course," White replied. That's what we're here for. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of the galaxy, new human ships were already patrolling the borders. The Earth Defense Force had grown from a small collection of patrol vessels to a real military force. But more importantly, they were working alongside ships from dozens of other species. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching a mixed squadron of human, Vraxian, and Karathi ships conduct training exercises. The crews were learning to work together, sharing tactics and techniques that would have been secret just months ago. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal, his communications officer reported. Unknown vessel under attack by pirates in the Centauri system. Set course for Centauri, Webb ordered without hesitation. Signal the squadron to follow us. Sir, the vessel might not be friendly. We don't know what species it is. Doesn't matter, Webb replied. Someone needs help. That's reason enough. It was the human way. It was the way that Captain Martinez and her crew had shown the galaxy. When someone was in trouble, you helped them. When evil threatened the innocent, you stood up and fought. When the odds were impossible, you found a way to win anyway. The Liberty and her squadron jumped to hyperspace, racing toward another battle. But this time, they weren't going alone. Ships from across the galaxy were also responding to the distress call. The lesson of the Valiant had spread far and wide. Back on Earth, in a small cemetery in Ohio, a simple stone marker bore the names of the Valiant crew. Fresh flowers were placed there every day by people who had never met the crew but understood their sacrifice. Children played nearby, growing up in a world where their planet was no longer alone in the universe. Lisa, Martinez's parents, visited the memorial often. They were proud of their daughter, but they also grieved for the grandchildren they would never have, the life she would never live. Still, they knew she had died doing what she believed was right. She always wanted to help people, her mother said, placing flowers on the grave. Even as a little girl, she couldn't stand to see anyone hurt. She helped more people than we'll ever know, her father replied. The whole galaxy is safer because of what she did. The story of the Valiant had become legend. Children across the galaxy learned about the small human ship that faced impossible odds and won. Military academies studied the battle, trying to understand how creative thinking and determination could overcome superior technology. But the most important lesson was simpler than any tactical analysis. Sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. Sometimes helping others means risking everything. Sometimes being human means being willing to sacrifice yourself for strangers. Devourers were not completely destroyed. Intelligence reports suggested that more of their ships still lurked in the dark spaces between galaxies. But now the galaxy was ready for them. The combined fleets had the weapons and tactics needed to fight back. More importantly, they had the spirit that the humans had shown them. The spirit that said no matter how dark things got, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed, there was always a reason to keep fighting. There were always people worth protecting. There was always hope. In the memorial orbit around Kepler 442, the broken hull of the USS Valiant continued its silent watch. The ship was gone, but its message lived on. Every time a species helped another in need, every time someone chose courage over fear, every time the impossible became possible through determination and sacrifice, the spirit of the Valiant lived again. The galaxy had learned what humanity truly meant. It wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. It was about being willing to stand up for others, even when standing up meant falling down. It was about believing that every life mattered, whether human or alien, friend or stranger. It was about arriving when no one expected you and changing everything.